I'm going to be going over some problems from the Unit 4 Worksheet 3, and we're going to start by looking at number 5. We're asked to perform the indicated operation and to write our final answer in simplest form. And I'm also going to consider the excluded values. So in number 5, we have a fraction, and when we add two fractions, we need a common denominator. And 2x minus 6 and 6 minus 2x are not the same denominator. But we can rewrite, they are actually opposites of each other, so we can rewrite this as 3x over 2x minus 6 plus 9 over negative 2x minus 6. Because 6 minus 2x is the same thing as negative quantity 2x minus 6. And if you distribute that negative through to the 2x and to the 6, you'll see that you get a negative 2x and a positive 6, which is what we had before. The denominators still don't look alike yet. And so that second fraction, what I'm going to do is multiply the top and bottom by negative 1. And so that's going to make a negative 9 and a positive 2x plus 6. So now the denominators match. So now I can add the numerators. And I get 3x plus negative 9, or 3x minus 9, over 2x minus 6. There's nothing that can be factored or reduced. This is actually, take that back, we can factor a 3 out of the top part, so we get 3 times x minus 3. We could factor a 2 out of the denominator and get 2 times x minus 3. And both fractions have an x minus 3. Divide top and bottom by x minus 3, and you end up with 3 over 2. Number 9, I want to take a look at that one next. And we need a common denominator before we can subtract. First I compare 6 and 15. 6 is 3 times 2. 15 is 3 times 5. So they both have the 3 in common. But the left side needs a 5 and the right side needs a 2. 3 times 2 times 5 is going to give us 30. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply both sides by 5, top and bottom. And on the right side I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 2. Next, the left side has 1x, where the right side has x squared. So I need to multiply by x, top and bottom on the left-hand side. And the left side has a y, right side doesn't, so I'm going to multiply the right side, top and bottom by a y. And the purpose is to get a common denominator, so we end up with 5x over 30x squared y minus 4y over 30x squared y. Denominators match, so we can subtract now, and we get 5x minus 4y over 30x squared y. And there's no common factor now that we can divide the numerator and denominator by, so that is our final answer. So I have performed the operation on 5 and 9. I have simplified. What I have not done though is talk about excluded values. Going back to number 5, remember we can't divide by 0, so that 2x minus 6 can't equal 0, which means 2x can't equal 6, which means x cannot equal 3. And if we solve the 6 minus 2x, if we set that equal to 0 and solve, we end up with the same thing, x cannot equal 3. So that's our excluded value for number 5. For number 9, we have that x cannot equal 0 and y cannot equal 0. Moving on to number 12. 12, we have 5 over x minus 2 plus 3 over, I'm going to factor this denominator to x minus 2 times x plus 2. And we can see that the left side is missing a factor of x plus 2 because we need a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply by x plus 2 in the numerator and denominator of the first fraction. So we end up with a common denominator, 5 times x plus 2 plus 3 all over x plus 2 times x minus 2. We need to simplify the numerator by distributing 5 to x into 2. We get 5x plus 10 plus 3 all over x plus 2 times x minus 2. And 10 plus 3 is 13, so 5x plus 13 over x plus 2 times x minus 2. And that is as much as we can do. That's fully simplified. Going back to the denominators not equaling 0, we can't have x minus 2 equal 0, so x cannot equal 2. And we can't have x plus 2 equaling 0, so x cannot equal negative 2. Next, let's take a look at number 15. Denominators do not match. We need to factor those denominators. The first one, we have an x. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 5, add to 4. So x plus 5 times x minus 1. And the next one, two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to 3. X plus 5 times x minus 2. So both denominators have a factor of x plus 5. The left side does not have an x minus 2, so we need that. So multiply top and bottom on the left side by x minus 2. And the right side doesn't have an x minus 1. So multiply top, bottom, and sorry, right and left, or no, bottom and top of the right side by x minus 1. So we get 2 times x minus 2 minus 4 times x minus 1 all over this common denominator of x plus 5 times x minus 1 times x minus 2. Distribute the numerator. Gives us 2x minus 4 minus 4x plus 4 over x plus 5 times x minus 1 times x minus 2. Minus 4 and plus 4 adds up to 0, and 2x minus 4x is negative 2x. Still over the same denominator, x plus 5, x minus 1, and x minus 2. Nothing was reduced, so our excluded values are going to be x cannot equal negative 5, x cannot equal positive 1, and x cannot equal 2. Number 20, we have a fraction within a fraction, and subtraction and addition. And so what's going to help here is if we look at the denominators of the smaller fractions. So we got a x over 1, we got a y squared over x, we got a 1 over 1, and a y over x. And look for a common denominator, which would be x. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom part of the bigger fraction by x. So I'm going to distribute x to each piece here. And I get x squared minus xy squared over x plus xy over x. We can simplify these fractions and get x squared minus y squared, because the x's divide that smaller fraction by x, and same with the one in the denominator, over x plus y. We can factor x squared minus y squared to x plus y times x minus y, and the denominator is still x plus y. And then we can reduce by dividing the top and bottom of the fraction by x plus y, and you end up with x minus y all over 1, but we'll just leave that as x minus y. Excluded value is, well, in the original problem, x was a denominator, so x can't be 0. After we simplified this, we have a denominator of x plus y, so x plus y cannot equal 0, which means that x cannot equal negative y. So those are exclusions, and so this simplifies to x minus y. Number 22, we're asked to place one or more expressions from the expression options in each box to create an equation that is true for all values of x. Assume no denominator equals 0. So by that statement there, assume no denominator equals 0, we don't have to worry about excluding any values. So we have three fractions, different denominators. We want them to have the same denominator. So the first fraction, we're going to need x cubed. The second fraction, we're going to need an additional x squared and an x plus 1, because x times x squared gives us the x cubed part, so 3 times x squared, x plus 1. And the last fraction is going to need the x plus 1. So what I've added here, we see our denominator is x cubed times x plus 1. We also see that the 5 is multiplied with the x cubed, the 3 is multiplied with the x squared and the x plus 1, and the 4 is multiplied with the x plus 1. And that's where we stop with this problem. We don't continue to simplify, we just want that first initial step. And that's the end, well, that's all I'm doing from this worksheet.